So, getting right into it, you're the founder of the Galvin Cello Quartet, which has been doing really well and is an award-winning group. Can you, as a founder, can you tell us and share with us a little bit about how this group originated, and did you know from the beginning that the group would get as big as it has?
So it's interesting. We started during COVID. This was around the time that I started my master's at Northwestern University. And I actually had a chamber music class requirement to fulfill. And at the time, because it was COVID, I had no opportunity to meet the other instrumentalists. But the cello studio was pretty tight-knit, and I knew a lot of them from my summers at Meadowmount, where my teacher Hans Jensen teaches over the summer. And so because I had done cello quartets and ensembles in the past, like during my high school years, and actually a little bit in my undergrad years as well, I thought, well, what better time than now to do a cello ensemble? And so that's how it kind of got started. And it's funny because initially it wasn't as well received, and our chamber music director was like, I'll allow this if you enter the Fischoff National Chamber Music Competition. And at the time we were like, oh, that's crazy though. We've never played together as a group. I mean, we're friends, but like the three of us were in Evanston, and Luis was in Brazil at home. And so it's a pretty crazy story because we called up Luis and, well, because obviously the three of us were in Evanston, and then Luis, we called him, and he, I mean, of course he wasn't expecting it, but he came over to Evanston after quarantining in Mexico and Evanston, and then we finally got to rehearsing. And we rehearsed for 11 days together and recorded all that music for the very first time together. And you know, it was a crazy experience, but it really bonded us. And you know, we did pretty well, I would say, at the competition. And I think after that, we realized, well, we don't want to stop here. We were having so much fun. And so that's when we applied for CAG and
Concert Artist
Guild. And, you know, I guess ever since then, we've just continued to love playing together. And we really believe in what the cello quartet can do. And so we're excited to take it to new heights. And it's been a really great experience.
Yeah, and I'm curious, because I'm always curious about this with every group, how did the name originate?
So we were going through a couple of different options, but I think we ultimately decided on Galvin because that's the name of the main recital hall at Northwestern. It's the very beautiful one with the view of Chicago skyline.
The lake,
it's absolutely gorgeous. So, and the reason why we named it after that was because that was the first hall that we recorded everything from Fischoff together. So it was like our first moments together as a group. And so I think because of those sentimental reasons, we decided on Galvin.
It's great. And I'm curious, just logistically speaking, because for string quartets in general, one of the biggest challenges is intonation, obviously. How does that collide with four cellists? Do you think it makes it easier or more difficult because it's the same instrument?
I think, well, for us, we do tune each string, so it's equal temperament. So I think that helps with the intonation. But yeah, it can get a little bit tricky because I think what's tricky about cello quartet is just the balance, actually, because we're all within similar range. That's always been the trickiest thing, I think, about the cello quartet. But honestly, it's cool because we can do everything that the violinists and violists do. So it's been, it's pretty awesome in that sense.
Right. And it's interesting because I feel like what's unique about cello, like for us as cellists, is we're like the one instrument that really loves doing ensembles with like other cellists. I feel like other string players, it's like they don't really do that. So it's kind of it's nice that you guys are kind of like these torch bearers for like hopefully future cello quartets. So.
Hopefully, we're hoping that they're more budding cello quartets.
And I mean, because I know Hans was very, and I'm sure he still is, very passionate about cello ensembles in general. So I'm assuming that had a role in the formation of the group, maybe.
I mean, he's been so supportive of Galvin, and I don't think, we could be where we are without him.
Right.
So definitely.
Yeah. Well, moving forward a little bit, so can you talk to us a little bit about how you go about programming a concert for cello quartet, and if there are specific arrangers that you guys kind of go to, or if you arrange your own music, or?
Yeah, so I would say it's a mixture of things. So in terms of programming, we call it, it's kind of like a menu. You have an appetizer, a main course, a dessert. So we like to have a mixture of those types of works. It also really depends on what the venue wants. Sometimes if they, let's say, want a series of short pieces, we'll do that. But generally, I think we follow a little bit of like appetizer, main course, dessert in terms of programming. But when it comes to arrangements, we do a mixture of finding things online, arranging things ourselves. And actually, one of the biggest things for us is that we're looking to commission works. And that's part of what we want to do. We want to expand the cello quartet repertoire through these commissions. And specifically, we want to find composers who share similar backgrounds to us. So actually, last October, when we made our debut at Merkin Hall, we performed a piece by Zhou Tian, who's a Chinese-American composer. And at the time, actually see how our former member, who's from China, and Haddon, who's also Chinese-American. So it fit that. And actually this coming November, we're performing a commissioned work by a Brazilian composer. So yeah, we've been, this has been something that's been in the works. And this is something that we're definitely looking to expand and pursue continually.
Yeah, and just going back to like short pieces, you guys have like the most ridiculous rendition of the Pauper Elfenton on YouTube. And it's just like everyone gets a turn in terms of all the fun little moments. And remind me, who was the arranger for that? Was that?
So that one we got on Opus Cello, I believe. So they have a lot of different arrangements. But actually, we kind of rearranged that arrangement also, because a lot of times with these arrangements, we found that the first cello has everything, and then not as much for the other three. And I think part of what makes the cello quartet so unique is that we do everything from solo to chamber and everything in between. And we want to showcase these different strengths that each individual can bring. And so what we did with the Elfentons was we split the first cello part, and we each took different parts of the first part, and we kind of mixed it around a little bit. So, I think that's what has been kind of fun about being in a cello quartet.
And I know one person that really arranges a lot of cello quartet music is Blaise Desjardins, who's the principal cellist of the Boston Symphony. So have you guys reached out to him directly about cello quartet music, or other arrangers too?
Currently no, because I guess we've been able to find a good amount of repertoire. And I think most of it is that with the new works that we're bringing in, I think it's given us enough on our plate for now. But maybe in the future,
Yeah, that's wonderful. And so talk to us a little bit more about like the actual nuts and bolts of like rehearsal. Like, how do you guys approach rehearsing, and is it any different from other chamber music settings, or is it more or less the same, you would say?
I would say it's pretty similar. I guess a rundown of our rehearsal. I think we definitely, because here is the one thing, is that we do have so much repertoire, because for regular string quartets, each string quartet is a good like 30, maybe 40 minutes. But because our repertoire is not quite like that, we do a lot of, I would say, it really depends on how new the work is for us too. But if the work is pretty new, then we'll focus a lot of attention on that. But we also, because we have just a lot more pieces in terms of like the number, we always have to revisit those and work on those as well. So it comes with a lot of pre-planning on what we need to focus on, what needs more work, and I guess similar to any other chamber ensemble, from there we kind of see what needs more work and stuff like that.
And would you say that all four of you guys are musically on the same page, more or less, or do you guys all have very different ideas?
I think generally, like, we have similar lines of thought, but if there are differences, we discuss them, and we kind of come to a nice middle ground, I would say.
Yeah. I just can't imagine like traveling as a group, as a cello quartet, because I'm sure you guys are all like taking up a row on the plane. So
we definitely get some good amount of stairs, especially when we fly.
Yeah. Well, can you even do like road trips? Like you would have to get a pretty big car.
We do. Actually, we mainly do road trips.
Oh, really?
I mean, because it depends on the location, but what we try to do is if we have to fly, then we'll fly to one location. We'll try to group a good number of concerts around that, and then so we would drive to each of those in between and then fly back.
Okay.
So that way it's kind of a mixture.
Yeah.
But traveling is quite tricky. I think we've mastered how to lay out the car. It's a little bit like Tetris.
Right.
But I think we've kind of mastered that. And of course, we definitely need a minivan.
Yeah,
we won't fit into like a full size.
Right.
So we usually travel with a minivan. And we play Tetris a little bit, and we figured out a good system that works for us. But it's, I think actually the road trips, sometimes they are quite long.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a time for us to really bond, because in rehearsals, obviously, we're very work intensive and we're focusing on just the music making, that it forces us to really decompress and just really get to know each other.
Yeah.
So it's great, actually.
Yeah. And outside of these road trips, what else do you guys do as a group to bond and get closer?
I would say in general, well, actually, you've probably heard we have a new member.
Yeah, James.
So we're still getting to know him.
Sure.
But in the past, I would say, even when we are taking these road trips, when we have some downtime, we would do an activity together.
Sure.
We generally have meals together. So we definitely carve out time to just get to know each other as a group, because I think it really helps with the music making.
Yeah.
It's not, I think when we get to know each other's personalities, then it definitely influences the way we make music together and how we work together.
Yeah.
So of course, it's a combination of it definitely is a lot of fun, but it's also, we really get to know each other's styles.
Yeah.
On a personal and musical level that way.
And I would imagine that being in a group, especially with people that you are close with, is very fulfilling both musically and personally, because as many of the listeners would probably know, music is such an isolated endeavor where you're by yourself a lot. And so to be able to be with your friends and to make music in that kind of intense but yet rewarding environment, I'm sure is very fulfilling for all of you. So
I think so, and I think that is something that makes Galvin unique too, because we were friends first, even before becoming a group,
right?
And it's different to work. Of course, it's lovely to work professionally as well, and we are working professionally as well. But just the kind of bond that we have because we're friends, it brings it to another level, I would say.
Yeah.